Welcome, everyone, to the very first episode of Flood Insurance Clarity. I'm really excited to kick off this series. We're going to be diving deep into flood insurance and making it, well, crystal clear.
That's right. Hopefully we can make it easier for everyone to understand.
Yeah, exactly. And, just so everyone is aware, Flood Insurance Clarity is an educational initiative by Better Flood Insurance, and we're trying to blend our expertise with, well, cutting-edge content technology.
Trying to make this knowledge accessible.
To everyone, exactly. And speaking of expertise, I'm so glad to have you with us today. Flood insurance can feel a little bit, like a maze, but you always help make sense of it all.
Oh, I appreciate that. It's definitely a topic that needs, well, more demystifying.
Yeah.
And that's exactly why we're here.
Yeah, exactly. That's what we're hoping to do with this deep dive. So, okay, so before we get into the nitty-gritty, the specifics about insurance. Something really jumped out at me as we were prepping for this. The whole idea of flood risk, it's changing. We can't just picture those houses on stilts by the ocean anymore.
You're absolutely right. That image is it's outdated.
Yeah.
Climate change is a huge factor now, and that's creating more extreme weather and shifting flood patterns. And on top of that, a lot of flood maps are old, so people might think they're safe, but in reality, the risk in their area is actually growing.
Yeah, that's unsettling, to say the least.
It really is.
Which means this conversation is important for everyone. It doesn't matter where you live.
You got it.
So let's dig into, the insights from the material you shared. One article had a really catchy title, Insurance Isn't for Losers.
Oh, yeah, I remember that one, yeah.
Why Smart Money Plays It Safe AF.
Catchy, yeah.
But beyond the title, it made a point about how wealthy people are often the biggest proponents of insurance, right? It's not about lacking funds. It's about a strategic approach to protecting their assets. And, it's really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, wealthy individuals see insurance as more than just covering potential losses.
Right.
It's a financial tool. It frees up their capital so they can invest in other ventures, knowing their assets are protected if disaster strikes.
So they're not being overly cautious. They're actually able to take more calculated risks elsewhere because they have that safety net.
Exactly. And the article digs into some of those specific strategies they use, like umbrella insurance for broader coverage, or setting higher self-insured retentions. It's really all about understanding the options and leveraging them to your advantage.
That makes a lot of sense. And it ties into another concept the article brought up, information asymmetry. Sometimes we as individuals, we know more about our risk than the insurance companies do.
Absolutely, and that's so crucial. It's not just about knowing your risk, though. It's understanding how that risk is perceived and priced by insurers. So, for example, let's say you recently upgraded your home's flood defenses. Maybe you installed a backflow preventer or, raised your electrical system, stuff like that. The insurance company won't automatically know about those improvements.
Right.
And those could affect your premiums.
So we can't just assume they have all the information. We need to be proactive about communicating those changes that might impact our risk.
That's right. Communication is key.
Okay, so let's tackle a big misconception. The idea that flood insurance is only for those in high-risk flood zones.
Oh, yeah.
I think we both know that that's far from the truth.
You are absolutely right. And the reason why is multifaceted. First, while we have flood zones, they aren't always accurate.
Okay.
A lot of them are based on old data. They don't account for recent developments like new construction that's altering water flow, or, as we talked about earlier, climate change, making weather patterns less predictable.
So the zones themselves, they aren't a foolproof guide.
Nope. Not at all. Plus, even within lower risk zones, flooding can still happen. A broken water main, heavy rainfall, overwhelming drainage systems, all these things can cause significant damage regardless of your official zone.
Right. It's like that old saying, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And speaking of prevention, the article also highlighted that FEMA data suggests flood insurance can be surprisingly affordable, especially in those lower risk areas.
It is. In Zone X, for example, which is considered low risk, the average annual premium can be as low as, let's just say, $500. That's less than some people spend on their streaming services.
Wow.
Or their daily coffee.
Yeah, that's a powerful comparison. When you put it that way, a small monthly premium, it seems like a pretty reasonable trade-off for the financial protection.
It's all about prioritizing that financial security, just like those savvy investors we were talking about earlier. They understand that mitigating risk is key, and for most people, a flood event, that could be financially devastating.
That leads us to the people who choose to self-insure. which this article, they compared it to literally burning money.
And it's a valid point. The question is, are you actually self-insuring? Do you have hundreds of thousands of dollars set aside to rebuild your home and replace everything you own if a flood happens?
That's a good question.
Huh?
Because for most people, a major flood event could wipe out their savings completely.
Exactly. And even if you have some savings, would you rather deplete them entirely to recover from a flood, or would you rather pay a relatively small premium each month for the peace of mind knowing you're covered?
Right, yeah.
Self-insuring only works if you truly have the financial resources to withstand a major loss, and even then, it might not be the wisest strategy.
So it's not just about having the money, it's about understanding the potential impact
Exactly.
that a flood could have on your overall financial well-being. And that brings up another point.
Yeah.
Taking action now, waiting until a flood is on the horizon, can make getting coverage more difficult and expensive.
You're absolutely right. There's often a waiting period before a new flood insurance policy goes into effect. It's not something you can buy on a whim when the storm clouds roll in.
Plus, if you wait until a flood is imminent, you're more likely to face higher premiums because the risk is considered greater at that point.
It's like waiting until you're sick to buy health insurance. It just doesn't make financial sense.
And the good news is, getting a quote, it's super easy,
Yeah.
and it doesn't obligate you to purchase anything.
Nope. It's all about gathering information and making an informed decision, which, aligns perfectly with the mission of this.
Speaking of which,
Yeah.
this whole series, Flood Insurance Clarity, it's such a great initiative by Better Flood Insurance.
Oh, it is.
Using technology to really, make this information accessible to everyone is fantastic.
It's fantastic.
And to take that accessibility a step further, I want to give our listeners, a direct connection to experts who can help navigate all of this. So if you're ready to get a quote or you have questions, I highly recommend Flood Nerds.
Flood Nerds.
Yeah.
They're a team of insurance professionals. They specialize in flood insurance.
Flood Nerds, that's kitschy.
Yeah.
They sound like they really know their stuff. They absolutely do. And you can easily find them online. Just Google, Flood Nerds. And you'll be on your way to getting the information and support you need. It takes the guesswork out of the process.
Yeah, it does. And it really echoes a key takeaway we discussed earlier. Hope is not a strategy when it views to flood risk.
So true.
Getting informed and taking action, that's essential.
We've covered a lot in this first episode, and I hope our listeners feel, more informed and empowered to make smart decisions about flood insurance.
Yeah, me too. We've talked about how insurance is a smart financial move, not just for those who can't afford to self-insure, but really for anyone looking to protect their assets and their future.
Right.
We debunk the myth that it's only for people in high-risk zones.
Yeah.
Flood risk is evolving and it impacts more people than ever before.
And we also dug into the specifics of self-insuring and why for most people it's not a viable option. Instead, a small monthly premium, it can provide significant peace of mind and, financial security.
Right, and we even discussed how affordable flood insurance can be, especially in those lower risk areas. In some cases, it's less than common monthly subscriptions.
It really puts things into perspective, doesn't it? But, there's one point we haven't explicitly discussed that I think is worth highlighting before we wrap up.
Yeah.
It wasn't directly mentioned in the source material, but it builds on everything we've talked about today.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Go on.
Well, we discussed how climate change impacts flood risk. But what about the broader implications? As this risk increases, it's not just individual homeowners who are affected. We're talking about entire communities, cities, even regions facing growing challenges related to infrastructure, disaster preparedness, economic stability,
That's an excellent point. It elevates the conversation beyond just individual responsibility and really shines a light on the systemic challenges we face as a society. If flood risk is increasing across the board, we need to think about how we're adapting, our infrastructure, how we're preparing communities, how we're managing these resources on a much larger scale.
Exactly. It becomes a question of collective resilience and how we're going to mitigate these risks, not just as individuals, but as a society.
Precisely. And that, I think, is a very thought-provoking note to end on. It's not just about buying insurance, it's about understanding the bigger picture and how these interconnected systems, how they'll shape our future.
Well said. I think it's a perfect ending to this first deep dive, leaving our listeners with something to ponder as they navigate their own flood insurance journey.
Indeed. It's been a pleasure exploring this topic with you, and I look forward to our next deep dive.
Likewise. And to our listeners, thank you for joining us on this first episode of Flood Insurance Clarity. Remember, hope is not a strategy. Take action today, protect your assets, and stay informed. And if you're ready to take that next step, don't forget to check out Flood Nerds. Just Google Flood Nerds, and you'll find a wealth of information and expert support.
Until next time, stay curious and stay dry.
That's a wrap on our very first episode. We'll be back soon with more deep dives into the world of flood insurance, so be sure to subscribe and stay tuned. We'll be exploring even more fascinating aspects of flood insurance in upcoming episodes, so make sure to subscribe and join us again soon. And that's it for this deep dive into flood insurance. We hope you found this information helpful.
Yeah, we really tried to pack a lot in, make it, as clear as possible for everyone.
We'll definitely be back with more deep dives exploring different aspects of flood insurance, so stay tuned for those.
And in the meantime, be sure to check out Flood Nerds. Like we said, just Google Flood Nerds. They can answer any questions, get you a quote.
Exactly. Don't wait until it's too late. Remember, hope is not a strategy.
Nope.
All right, until next time. Thanks for listening to Flood Insurance Clarity.
Stay dry.